Welcome to the Develop Yourself podcast, where we teach you everything you need to land your first job as a software developer by developing yourself, developing your skills, your habits, your network, and more. I'm one of your hosts, Aaron Hayslip, and today we're doing something a little bit different. I posted a post on LinkedIn asking if there were any beginners who were currently learning to code and trying to land their first job as a software developer who wanted to come on the podcast and basically get a little advice, an opportunity for us to kind of troubleshoot their journey to becoming a software engineer on the fly. And that's exactly what happened in this episode. Michael Garcia, who is amazing. If you're hiring sometime soon, you should definitely give Michael a look. But anyways, we're going to be talking through his journey becoming a software engineer, where he's at now, and kind of my best advice on his next steps. I hope you enjoy. So for context, I've got Michael here, and I'll probably have already said some of this in the intro, but I basically made a link, or a post rather, on LinkedIn just saying, hey, is there anyone out there who's in their journey, kind of in the midst of things, learning to code, and would want to come on the podcast and talk through what they're going through, perhaps, get some advice from me on their journey? And you raised your hand, said yes. And that's kind of honestly all I know about you.
Yeah.
So we're starting from scratch. So that being said, man, why don't you give us just like a brief history of you, where you live, what you do, kind of what got you interested in coding, and just where you've been so far in your journey.
So I'm from the Northwest in the United States, up towards Seattle. But I live in a little town called Seattle, is where I grew up. And I guess I went to school in Central Washington University. I went for geography, but mapping. So on a computer all the time, GIS. And we did some basic looping with Python back in the day. And it wasn't the route I went. I did an internship with a county and it didn't work out. I had a job with financial services at the school, and that kind of got me onto web development. I didn't take it any farther because they kind of had it all laid out for me. And it's not so interesting because I was bartending, COVID hit, and that just completely ruined me.
Ruin your bartending?
Yeah, I love bartending, and it wasn't what I necessarily want to do for the rest of my life. I was still trying to figure that out. But I had a financial goal. I had plans. I had options, and so I had to reset. I moved home. I was talking to a friend. He lives down in San Diego, and he works for a consulting, I think, contracting firm for Booz Allen or something like that. And he was talking about being a financial advisor. And so I looked up boot camps because I knew I wanted to be involved with computers and in that route. And he said, yeah, you could go towards programming or you could do this. And
wait, so programming to become a financial advisor? Was that
Yeah, well, not financial advisor as much as a financial consultant, somebody dealing with financial technologies, specifically with government contracting. And I just thought it sounded really cool. I had no idea what I was doing. So cool. Other than I had some partial experience with finance, then also in programming. And it was just, I really didn't know where I was at. So the first thing I could do, same as raising my hand for this, is I signed up for a boot camp immediately. I won't necessarily say what boot camp. I'm glad I did it.
Yeah.
I probably could have found a better one. The people who were teaching it were absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
And there's some things I missed out on. And again, probably just the wrong class, but it wasn't the right boot camp.
Yeah.
So now I'm in a hole, and I started, diving deep on my own afterwards. It's like, how do I do this then? How do I teach myself the things I need to know? And I realized I went on this bend for the last year and a half and so it's been a while, obviously, of focusing on how do I teach myself programming. And I ended up realizing Python isn't what I wanted to do. So I went to JavaScript, read a little book, and discovered you. Honestly, that's kind of where I'm at. Yeah, and
Cool,
I think that's actually the interesting part about it, though. Quick summary or wrap up on it is I've been working in this lumber warehouse carrying, thousands of wood all day, so pounds of wood, and I can't be at a computer. So I'm like,
Yeah.
I want to be a programmer. This is what I want to do. I know that. I figured that out. Nothing else has ever felt that important to me,
Yeah.
at least in career choices. And so I looked up podcasts, and it's the first time I've ever been interested in podcasts. And I found a couple podcasts that I liked, listened through a few of them, and after I stumbled on you, I started from the first episode. I like the voice. I like the way you explain things. It really helped me clarify what I needed to do next,
Yeah.
step by step. So starting from ground zero, I started listening to audiobooks and people
Mm.
talking out code. It was mind numbing, but there's nothing I could do, right? And that's
Yeah.
where I'm at. And now I'm trying to build little apps for myself and see what I can do. Put
That's
myself out
awesome.
there.
Well, first, I appreciate all that. As I said before we started recording, like I didn't even know if you ever heard the podcast. So to hear that you're like a fan, is awesome. To even know that we have fans is cool, by the way, like to people who actually listen to the podcast and find it useful, because, and this is, hopefully probably something that's encouraging, just as like a side tidbit about the podcast. Oftentimes I get people like asking questions about like, hey, how do I become a guest on a podcast, that kind of thing. And it's like, well, like anyone can start one. Like I had no idea how to do a podcast until I started one. And if you just keep going, like, probably the same kind of encouragement will be what I'll say for your coding journey too. Like if you keep going, like you'll get there. Like just, if you don't quit, you'll definitely eventually arrive there. Okay. So backing up, couple pieces I wanted to clarify with your journey. So you graduated, you said college with a geology or geography?
Geography. So
Okay.
not the study of rocks, the study of, I would say everything. Geography just encapsulates
Yeah.
literally everything.
Yeah. Okay. And you had, at some point you said you'd had some web development or programming experience.
Really poor. I could give you the whole standard. I grew up with Neopets. I had MySpace, and I did my own page stuff. Nothing I
Yep.
retained. IT
Yeah.
classes in high school, one that was kind of fun with hardware. But
Okay.
the basic Python was somebody handed me, this is how you do a for loop, and we had to do it through the IDE in the software that we used for mapping.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it was very specific, very niche.
Yeah. Okay. They gave you a taste for it, at least anyway. Yeah. It's funny. The MySpace thing. I had who I was like, do you know who Wes Boss is?
Yeah.
I was like a huge fan of Wes Boss forever. And I can't believe he like did the podcast. And that was like his story. It was like, basically he started programming because he was like, customizing his MySpace page, which is really funny. Okay. So you do that. And then you go through this boot camp. I want to hear more about, you don't have to, I don't care about the name of the boot camp and all that. Obviously I'm biased because I have my own kind of thing, but like what was like the prep process, the admissions process? Did you have to like already know how to program? Was there like a admissions test, something like that before you went into your boot camp?
No. And I knew that was an issue. I think that I excused it because of finishing my degree and having experience.
Yeah.
And so I sold it for myself. Nobody really sold it for me.
Yeah. That's cool. And I wasn't saying that as like a dig on you or the boot camp, just as a preparation. I was just curious, what that was like, how prepared you were.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I take nothing personal in that. It was interesting though. It was, and I'm not going to say I regret it. I really am glad I took it, no matter what, no matter the debt, no matter whatever the consequences of it. It really benefited or benefits me in where I'm trying to go. So I'm happy with it.
And that was online after you finished. So after COVID, right?
Yeah. It was during COVID, technically. Yeah.
Okay.
After COVID shut down.
Yeah. And then you were able to build, I guess you're saying like Python, like using like Django, Flask, that kind of thing. Is that what you came away from the bootcamp with?
So that's what I'm realizing now. And actually what really helped through the book, what I do, learn Python the hard way after the class, which helped me more than that class, specifically on coding. And to give credit to the actual boot camp, it wasn't focused on the programming. It was focused on financial technologies.
Yeah. With
some programming. And I misled myself.
Okay, I got you.
But I did learn Python. I did learn a little, what is it, Solidity, which is a technology used for creating
Smart
like
contracts.
cryptocurrency, and yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
but other than
Cool.
that,
So it
no
was specifically like
frameworks.
a financial technology kind of boot camp.
Yeah. So no
Okay.
frameworks. It was a lot of machine learning too, which is really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay. So then when you finished that, were you immediately looking for jobs then?
I did. Maybe it was because I was just trying to accomplish what I thought I was supposed to
Of
instead of
course.
finding what I needed. But yeah, I threw out hundreds of applications. I got two
Okay.
interviews and all that, which I'm proud of, and
Yeah.
they were humbling. Not that I wasn't already in a way, because I knew what I was lacking, but even more
Yeah.
so when you get an interview and somebody asks you these questions and you know, you're just thrown for a loop completely. You
Yeah.
almost feel like you really have to take a step back for a couple weeks, which is what I did, and think about
Yeah.
what I was doing.
What kinds of jobs were these that you were applying for, and which kind did you get the interviews for?
There was the first one was a SQL database manager, or not manager as much as just a part of the programmer.
Okay.
And there was a lot of questions on joins and
Yeah.
um, specific Java questions. So there's some back end in there
Hmm.
and stuff that I had no clue about, other than maybe some SQL questions. And even then, very beginner, very basic. And then the other
Yeah.
job was more of an internship style job where it was half pay training for a few months before. Um, I can't go. I don't remember the specifics on that one because it was quick and there was more. The interview process itself was
Yeah.
do a technical, then talk, and I didn't make it
Were
past the
the
second.
Yeah, yeah. Were these specifically related to like the financial industry?
Yes, one was with a banking, and the other one was with, I think, just financial services in general.
Okay. Cool, cool. Yeah, so then walk me through like why at some point did you think this is this isn't working, I need to like learn JavaScript, or it seems like you like went down a different path now to more general web development. What was that? Why, I guess?
You know,
Because I
you
agree with that. I would have done that too, but I'm just
yeah, it was this weird switch of confidence, not in what I could do, but in what I wanted to. And so I was like, I'm going to build my own application, right? So I tried to, but I did it with Python.
okay.
Um, and I didn't necessarily finish it. It's just script that runs, and it worked. It was a script that it would, it was a Twitter scraper based off of a search, and then it would um, parse itself into stock tickers, and then it would text it to me every time I ran it,
Awesome.
and it
Cool.
worked. It worked. It was a little archaic. What is it? The end complexity on it was pretty difficult. I had for loops and for loops and for loops, and it was just how do I make this run?
Yeah,
And then
for
as I
sure.
got to the end of it, I was like, this runs. This is cool, but it looks so bad. All I see is black and white, black and green code. I want an application. How do I make this something I can use
Mhm.
whenever I
Yeah.
want to? And the more I Googled, the more I looked up how to do that. Python, there are options, nothing I was educated in. I was like, okay, I have to start from ground zero. And it sounds like JavaScript's the best way to build applications. So if I'm going to do something, I'm not going to make the same mistake as I did with this initial start. I'm going to start from ground zero and follow step-by-step process of where I need to go, no matter how slow or fast.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So kind of went down more or less a self-teaching route of how do you
Yeah.
build full stack applications, because it sounds like you have like a really great foundation in knowing how to program. I mean, even talking about big O complexity, you could even realize how that applies to your own application that you've built in Python. So where are you at now in that journey of basically learning how to build web applications with JavaScript?
So it's almost a full circle right now.
Okay.
I've been listening, and I want my understanding to be there. So I think I want to go towards full stack generally, and I don't have to, but that would be cool.
Yeah.
I got through the basics of JavaScript. I watched a guy on YouTube. I listened to you. I did your Dev 30 program,
Awesome.
and which really helped, by the way. It was amazing. It really
Thanks.
set things step by step. And now I'm moving on to West Boss, which
Awesome.
and that's my full circle. I'm now trying to take that application, which I redid in Python, which was fun to get back to. And now I was trying to figure out how to put that onto a web application. So now I'm trying to learn frameworks, which I'm just starting, so fresh.
Okay, cool. And then your plan from there, like what's kind of the roadmap that you got set up between now and getting a job?
Right now, I want to have a fully developed application, full stack, as much as that means. And I think I don't necessarily know what that means yet. I just know I want a web application that I can type in and it runs, it works. I want my own portfolio website. Everybody does, everybody has the standard, but I've always just wanted one for me because I think it'd be fun to touch up on it, make it, put a game on there, whatever little projects I do, that's for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then that's it. I think by the end of the year, my biggest goal is I want a dev job. And so
Yeah.
that's where I'm at in the process. And I guess I'm not sure where to go to get there. I'm just doing what I'm doing, whether I'm doing it right or wrong.
Yeah. Man, I think it's great. To be honest with you, a couple thoughts, like if I could just give you like all my opinions that, take with a grain of salt. I'm just one person.
Yeah.
But one thing I always tell folks is that the path to self-teaching is incredibly difficult. Of course I'm biased, like having Parsity, like our own online code school and all that. Like, I don't think it's for everybody, but I do want to point that out, that obviously what I say is through the lens of someone who would benefit from people not self-teaching. But to be honest, like just to be straight honest and, take this for what it is, I've only met like less than a handful of people. What I mean by less than a handful is I mean less than 5, like in all of my career doing this so far, who have like been fully self-taught. Now I think you have a leg up because I think technically your journey wouldn't like qualify as like fully self-taught, in terms of you went through an intense program, you learned how to program, how to program, you get sort of the fundamentals of building an application, which is awesome. So I always say that and caveat my, I guess, advice here for the self-taught folks, because the thing is, people think it's much more common than it is because those are the stories you hear. Like those are the incredible stories that you celebrate of like, oh man, you can like literally teach yourself something for free in your spare time and get a job as a software engineer. When in reality, the few who actually do that, you hear about them because they are celebrated and they sacrifice massive, right? I mean, it's like, yeah, sure, they didn't pay expensive boot camp to like teach them, but like the cost that they went through were probably more, if you think about the trade-off for time and money. That's always something that I like to caveat with say, so that may not apply to you, but I think for a lot of people who are wanting to go down a self-taught route, that's not to be made an discouragement, but an encouragement of like, hey, this really is that hard and takes many people that long to get through. That being said, I always say like the phases for getting a job as a software engineer happen. I mean, there's 3 of them, I always think, right? One is basically learning your first programming language, which you've done that kind of twofold with Python first, and then, it sounds like JavaScript, you've learned the fundamentals of JavaScript. And that really is for a lot of folks, I think, the first taste of, hey, do I like this? Can I do this? Am I going to enjoy it? Is this for me? If you can get through that, I think the next phases are easier, actually. I mean, they don't ever seem easier because the more that you learn, the more that you learn that you don't know, So like every step that you're going to go through from here on is going to be probably like you're making progress because you're getting better. But as you get better, you learn what you're not good at and what you don't know yet. So it never feels like you're actually progressing, right? But I'm sure you are. So if you can get over that first hump of like 0 to 20 of learning a programming language and being competent in it, you're like, that's good. That's probably the hardest part, even though it may not feel like it, because there's just no celebration that happens after that, right? There's no celebration. There's nothing. There's just on to the next steps. So that's the first one. You're already there. The second one I always say is basically get to a point where you can build a real app, right? And that's what you're talking about right now is, okay, so I'm going to take this Twitter scraper search thing that I built. Did you use like Twilio or something for text?
I did. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. That's just like the thing to use. And so that's probably like that's where you're at right now is like, how can I build this? And this is like the hardest, obviously, phase that there is. And I think it kind of comes in a few parts. The first part will be like, what is the, I've always referred to it as like the loop, like the full round trip of a full stack application. Now, when I say full stack, it's nothing complex. People have problems with like saying full stack, and like they say things like, oh, there's no such thing as a full stack developer. I don't know. Like all I know is most of the people I've ever taught how to program and get jobs as software engineers consider themselves full stack. They step into full stack roles. They can do the front end, they can do the back end. They might at one point gravitate towards one or the other, the front end and the back end, and be better at it. But it's too early right now to like make that determination, probably, which absolutely. One like you're going to gravitate towards or be good at. So when I say full stack application, I mean, you have an application which on the front end, like displays something to the client, and then they have to make some kind of interaction with the back end. So they make a request to the back end. You built the back end. The back end is an API layer, has a database, gets data, puts data, does something with data, and then sends it back to the front end, right? That full round trip, like you got to have that in an application. Now, of course, there are a lot of ways that you can go through this process of learning that. Probably, yeah, I think you're right. Like JavaScript, that's why we use JavaScript. And by the way, like, as I'm like always plugging and promoting all of my stuff, I think I wrote this in a post recently, is like the interesting thing about starting your own things is like the plugs that I create end up being like the same things that I get like that pay me. I mean, like the reason why like I've created Dev30 or Parsity is because it's what I believe that works the best, Yeah. So I'm not plugging that, but I'm just saying that that's what we use is JavaScript so that you get like the full picture of that round trip, because ultimately, like, production level applications on the front end, they're built in JavaScript because that's just what works in the browser. So I think you're going to get to that place probably pretty soon. Yeah, totally. Go through Wes Boss's course. He's got great courses on React and, Gatsby and Next.js and all that kind of stuff, which at some point you'll need to dive deeper into architecture, like actually learn the design pattern underneath that. And what we do actually is we go back and we teach Backbone, not because you need to know Backbone, but Backbone kind of makes you know how to do the architecture side of a front-end application, whereas React kind of just automates it for you. It's like the difference between driving like a stick shift and an automatic. If you really want to understand a transmission, like get a stick. But so that being said, what you're trying to get to then is phase 3, which is the job search. And then kind of in between phase 2 and phase 3 is what I would say is like building a real app. Now, your Twitter scraping API Twilio thing, I bet it's awesome. And I'm not trying to like at all throw shade on it, because I always joke that don't build a recipe app as like your final project. I'm like, you gotta bust out a ton of recipe apps. Like you've got to build. Yeah. I mean, there's nothing but crappy apps that are in you. You know what I mean? Like until you start able to build real good ones. And you've just got to get in the reps. You've got to build in all the crappy stuff. You've got to put in the time. You have to make the mistakes. Like basically there's no other way to learn, and you can do all the tutorials you want, listen to all the podcasts you want, but until you're in the thick of it, encountering stuff that's not working, it's breaking, and then you're having to go learn how to fix it, like you're not actually going to learn anything until like you're in that position. So that being said, I think the end goal here for you shouldn't be like a portfolio website necessarily of a bunch of projects, but like one big real project. And by real, and this is the challenge I've been making to everybody, and even our own students, we kind of even revamped the final project for this recent cohort to say, hey, don't just build a project that shows off that you know how to like use this framework or whatever, but think at the product level as well. Like what's something that solves a real problem? Not that like you have to like be creating this startup right now that's
Yeah.
like doesn't have to be profitable, doesn't have to be original, it didn't have to like beat the competition. Like what's something real that like actually solves a real problem that you can work on passionately? And the reason why I say something real is because one, you'll be motivated for the product itself, not just the code, which will be really fun. You know, like you'll be motivated to actually build this thing, regardless of the technical side of it, because you want to build the thing and enjoy it. While you're building this, I always say like there's two things that you should be doing: learning in public and building in public, right? And then on LinkedIn, you know, I'm always encouraging folks that like, yeah, post daily to LinkedIn. That was part of the Dev 30 thing, right?
Yeah.
Getting this habit of like every day post something. And the most common question I get is, cool, like, well, what do I post? And there's two things. If that day you learned something, or if that day you worked on building something, like you've got something to explain, you know? Even if like nobody is engaging, liking your stuff, you're not getting views, like who cares? Like you can optimize for that later. You just got to build a habit of like engaging, whether it takes you 2 minutes or not. Like a little secret about my stuff, by the way, like I just started doing this a few months ago. I take 1 hour on Fridays and I write 5 posts Monday through Friday. And if I do that, some days I don't, some Fridays I don't do it. If I do that, I'm up to like where I get like 80,000 views on my stuff a week.
Wow.
Based off that 1 hour. So if you could do 10 minutes a day and then slowly optimize for, you know, views, but if nothing else, what you're trying to get is attention and then basically a record book of your work, right? I mean, people can either look at your LinkedIn, and even if it's not for anybody else but you, like you've got this timeline of confidence that has slowly grown. And then in the end, like confidence is probably the most important asset you have to like work on for the job search. But anyway, the job search is another beast. So I'm going to stop talking for a minute, but yeah, any thoughts on that? Like, so beyond this project you've got, I think there's one more project in you, possibly even a group project, but not necessary. You don't have to have a group project, but I think there's one more project in you that's like beyond this one, that you've got to build before you're like ready to start applying for stuff.
Oh, absolutely. I think, like I said, I miss those I think I'm missing what's in between. Not that I know everything about CSS, HTML.
Sure.
I think, and not that there isn't a lot to learn, even once you do know a lot. It's more so I'm confident that once I have the back end, I generally know how I'm going to want it to look, but I want to make sure it can talk. The back end can talk to the front before I even think about what it's going to look like. I mean, I can draw stuff all I want. I'm confident I can make it happen, you know, without overcomplicating it or anything, and still making it look nice. So that communication between is where I'm kind of stuck. And I think once I accomplish that with this app, I think that's when I can realize what I could do with that next, you know, bigger application, that full stack project, totally. You know, because you don't know what you can do until you learn, you know, something new or the things you need 100%. To know.
And that's why, like you said, all the in-between stuff you don't know, that's where like having the goal of not learning, but like what you're going to build is a much better goal, right? To have an actual outcome and not just inputs. Because I think a lot of times people, especially beginner developers, they're thinking of the list of things they need to acquire. They're thinking of the resume, right? Yeah. And probably they're working backwards and reverse engineering the resume because they think the resume is what gets them a job. It's like, okay, if I fill out this resume and I have these skills listed, like they're going to be super interested because they need those skills. Reality, like they don't care necessarily. Like your first job, your resume is terrible anyway, right? Because, and that's probably why you and everyone else experiences this in the job search. That's kind of getting the phase 3 here, but that's why everyone experiences in the job search where, you know, you apply to 100, 200, 300 applications and you get a couple interviews. It's just luck because they see your resume and they see no experience. So like, what's the difference between you and anyone else? You know, on paper, nothing. Hopefully when they get you in for an interview, and that's actually what we see a lot of times with Parsity is the hardest part is our students actually getting the interview. Their win rate though, for like interviews to offers is, I wish we tracked it. We don't, but it's ridiculous. Like if you go in for an interview, like you're probably going to get an offer. Now, like it's going to be hell to get the interview, right? So anyway, that being said, you can't work backward from the resume though, just to get a skill. What you need to work back from is like the project. Like what is it that you can build, right? Because yeah, if you go through a React tutorial, you're not going to know React, right? And this is like one big takeaway that I've discovered teaching for so long now is, and maybe you experience this in your bootcamp too, but a lot of times I'll see our students, what we normally do is we have like a week of curriculum that at the end of the week, like you build a project, and that project is like your evaluation that we grade you on and like review. And oftentimes students will go through the week of work and they'll get to the project and they're like, oh crap, I have no idea how to build this. And so they think to themselves, all right, well, I just got to go back to the curriculum. There must have been something I missed. Like as if like going back to the curriculum, like will magically make something click. And reality is like you don't learn unless you have to, right? Like if you have to build something in that moment, like you're going to learn exactly what you need to learn. But if you don't have to build something, you're not going to. So anyway, yeah, I think reverse engineering and coming away with like, what am I going to build and what does it take to build that, like is definitely the best way to go. Yeah. Anyway.
Interesting. Yeah. I guess that kind of brings up an idea. So today I got denied an application, which is fine, no, but I'm glad I got a reply, even a response makes me happy.
Yeah.
And I replied back to them immediately. I asked them, what are you looking for? What would you like to have seen? Because I know I don't have the resume, but I'm sure there are other candidates that don't. What did they have? Just simple. I kept it simple. And I guess that goes back to you with the project too. You're saying a full stack project, which I completely agree. It's what I want to do. And I think what I'm missing is, what are you looking for in a full stack project? Because in my head, as a self-taught programmer, what I see is that simple basic application that is a Twitter bot, and that's just my ignorance in my own way. But yeah, what would you say you're looking for? And obviously, again, if I found a project and I built it, it would help. But I guess I just want to clarify.
Yeah, no, that's good, man. That's a great question. I think so. A couple of things. Your final project plays like two significant roles in your job search. Like one is the actual search itself. So like the two tasks that we've mentioned just now are like getting the interview and then getting the job after you get the interview, right? So the final project obviously will help you get the job if you get the interview, because you're going to be able to show, one of the questions you're oftentimes going to get in these interviews is like, hey, show me some code from the most significant thing you've built, right? So not only that, but it'll help you actually answer interview questions because they might ask you stuff that's specific that you encountered inside that thing. Now, for actually getting the interview, your final project isn't as helpful directly as people would think, right? So
yeah.
One of the kind of like myths people respond to, which is why they build portfolio projects, is this idea that like someone's going to see my work before I get an interview. It's probably not going to happen. Probably someone is going to disagree.
That's not why I want to do it. Let me clarify.
Right. But I'm just kind of like saying, but someone's probably going to disagree with me, but you're probably not going to get anyone to see your work before you get an interview. And so like a portfolio website, for example, is probably a waste of time, because a lot of people building portfolio sites are having this, imagining hiring managers like going off the internet, looking at all these portfolio sites and just, being amazed that what they see, but they're probably not going to be amazed. But the final project is for your confidence, right? Because like, if you believe that you are the top 1% of all the other people applying for this job, you're going to do different stuff, right? Yeah. It's going to cause you to take different kinds of actions. And if you can build a full stack application that solves a real problem, like you are a software engineer, like whether you're getting paid to do it or not, like you are a software engineer. And the more that you can believe you're a software engineer, then the easier it's going to be to actually transition into getting someone to pay you to do it, right? So you're already doing the work of a software engineer. Have you ever read the book Atomic Habits? I talk about this a lot.
No, it's funny though that you say that, because another podcast I listen to, when you don't have a new episode, is and I don't know, is it safe to say another podcast? It's
Yeah, of
I
course.
believe it's the Ladybug podcast, Ladybug
Yes.
Developers.
Yeah.
I just
They don't do it anymore, but I love that podcast. Yeah.
yeah, they do a great job. I really do. I love how they come about and discuss things pretty openly about the programming world. And they talked about Atomic Habits, and I'm obviously gonna get it as an audiobook, although they said it's hard to do it that way. But that's what I have with
Yeah.
my time. Uh,
Sure.
but yeah, go ahead. So yes, I know the book. It's just funny that you
Yeah.
mentioned
What I was going to say is one of the things that James Clear talks about is this idea of identity. And it's this idea like every time that you perform an action that is attributed to that aspirational identity, like you're basically casting a vote to yourself to take on that identity, right? He gives an example like, hey, you're not fit, but you want to become fit. What do fit people do? They go to the gym. So every time I go to the gym, just by going, I'm casting a vote for the identity of someone who goes to the gym, right? I am that kind of people. And that's kind of true too with this final project idea of like, every time you show up and you code on your final project, you're casting a vote for this identity as software engineer. And then to take another part of James Clear here, one of the things he talks about is the difference between action and motion, right? So motion being stuff that keeps us busy, that makes us feel like we're doing something, but doesn't actually move the needle, whereas action is like the scary stuff that actually moves the needle. So an example in the job search would be, all right, making a list of companies is motion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Reaching out to an individual that works at the company is action. You can make as many lists as you want. Lists aren't going to get you a job. Reaching out to people will get you a job. And actually, I think applying probably actually blurs the line too, because I'm not sure in this stage, like how, you're kind of applying and praying. Whereas I would say like what you need to do is like actually reach out to real people and ask for meetings. And then if they don't respond, like you just keep hammering them.
Yeah. It's cool that you say
and
that.
the only thing that keeps you from doing that is like your own confidence, right?
Yeah. Even being here right now, this is totally out of my comfort zone. This is new.
Awesome.
This is something I've never done before.
Yeah.
And I would even say this is passive, because this isn't actually going to accomplish anything. This is just a fun, I need to learn, and let me phrase that maybe a little less, it's not harsh. I mean, that in a way,
that's great.
like this is building myself. This isn't getting the job. That's the best way to put it. And then I had another guy, he's talked about LinkedIn a lot, and thanks to you, I am active on it and I do use it, and I'm not as much as I probably should be, but I'm more so than others. So it's good. And I had a guy connect with me. Immediately I looked at his page. I've had a few people, and I look at their page and I see what they do and who they are, and that kind of makes me decide if I want to reach out or not. One guy reached out and he works for a company called State Space. So I got really excited about that because that State Space works with AIM Labs. And so I just immediately responded. And all I said was, hey, I've used AIM Labs before to get better at a game I played. Thanks for connecting with me. That was it. Right. And then we just had this conversation. And after this, he said he'd reach out. I'll probably reach out again, just to be on top of it. Give him my time and he said he wanted to talk about what they do and what I do, and it doesn't have to go anywhere. But again, I think that more on that action aspect of putting yourself out there, talking to people. And I think that builds your confidence too. It makes you want to do the project and see that your action actually has a result.
Yeah, no, I love that. That's for sure. And I mean, and that's just like the whole game is basically like throttling your confidence. Every time you get a yes to a request for a meeting, like you're going to be excited. So that's the best time to then start reaching out for more, because like you've got some momentum. And then whenever you get a rejection, like you're going to want to eat ice cream, in your underwear. and it stings 10 times more than like the yeses feel good. But I think that's just part of the human psyche, So let that confidence have you take action. And then, one kind of like practical tip here is start with like a company you want to work at, right? Oftentimes people just blast because they're just, again, you're praying for an opportunity, which sends a signal to other people, but also to yourself that you're desperate. Man, I can tell you right now, and this isn't just like BSing you, like when you get through this process of building this next couple of projects, like you will be the top 1% of all applicants, right? Like very few people you might hear from these people because they're the ones that are actually engaging online, there's a lot more people that are sitting in the shadows, just throwing resumes out there, hoping to learn by osmosis, hoping that their bootcamp certificate actually matters for something. But like, you will be there, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so that being said, like, start with your dream company, like the company you really want to work for, and everything that you're going to do as far as reaching out to people at that company, like, it's going to be genuine because you actually want to work there, right? Instead of having to muster up, some BS from some company that you're just praying will give you a paycheck so that you can move on to the next job a year later, which, is a strategy too. Start there, and then even reach out to people who maybe aren't like the VP of engineering or director of engineering or engineering managers, like senior software engineers or even like junior software engineers there. They're going to be easier to get a hold of. They'll take meetings because they don't get requests for meetings. And oftentimes, most of the times, they get a pretty fat referral bonus if they refer a new hire. Like, sometimes it's 3, 5. I've even heard for some Web3 companies, like $10,000.
Wow.
You can get. So they're like, they're motivated to, yes, Michael, yes, let's meet. Let's get you connected, because if they get you an interview and you happen to get hired, like they'll get a little paycheck bonus there.
Yeah, it's on the topic of finding a job, applying for jobs again. I've actually held back. I did applications recently because I was a part of a newsletter and it had very, very junior level positions that they post because that's, it's hard to find them. So I was like, I'll apply for these. I feel confident here, but I don't want to go out and find, not yet at least, a company that's a startup that's willing to bring in a junior, but, maybe I'm not passionate about what they're doing, and maybe, I'm not the person they need. I don't want to come in and to be nice to myself, because I don't mean it this way, extremely waste their time, because this is a project they're devoting literally their life to. And so I want to prepare so that maybe one day when I come back and I look and I see the project and I love it and I know what I can do for them, I insert myself there. That's the confidence I want and the respect I want to give to my employer. So looking for a company you love and where you want to work, that goes into another point of it's hard as a self-taught developer because you don't really know the options to some extent. At least I haven't, and it gets overwhelming looking for it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, man. Everyone's a self-taught developer. Like, that's kind of like something that maybe, I don't know if it's just, but should be encouraging. And it's kind of like maybe a final like piece here is, like, even if these days you get a graduate with a computer science degree, like, you still have to learn all the other stuff, to actually build applications. They don't teach you how to build web applications or how to build software in undergrad. You've got to learn that on your own at some point. Even in a boot camp, right? Like, sure, it helps you, give you structure. It gives you guidance, mentorship. You get stuck less easily, all that kind of stuff. It accelerates the process. But like, at the end of the day, like, you're still building the project yourself, right?
Yeah.
Everyone that's a good developer right now has like been in this process before. And that, you can sort of take solace in knowing that this is the path. Like, this is the path to becoming a software engineer. Oftentimes people complain too that, why do they make you have job experience before getting a job in these companies? And it's like, my rebuttal to that is always, that's the only thing they require of you. Like, they don't require anything else of you. They don't require you to like have a degree. They don't even require that like you live there or that you come to work. They just require that you can do it. And so like, that's what you're doing right now, is just getting to the point of like, I can do this. And as soon as you can, it's just a matter of time before you actually get the job. Man, I'm going to have to wrap this up in a minute here. What, is there anything left that we didn't like get to? By the way, before you answer that, I'm so encouraged by like your story. I think like you're killing it, right? You like are the story of someone who, COVID impacted, but maybe in a good way. It like kind of forced your hand to like get into the thing that you really want to do. And now even, whenever I got a job as a software engineer, I was working at a Honda dealership in the service department, making $9 an hour, literally parking cars. And I was doing the same kind of thing. I was reading programming books. while I was like standing there waiting to park cars. And you're doing something similar. So I think in a couple of years from now, it's going to be crazy to see where you're at. But yeah, anything else before we wrap up?
I can't think of much. I guess
Cool.
resources and everything, and looking it up, I kind of have, and I'm finding. I was just really excited to be here and talk, and grow.
Yeah.
I'm excited to grow. So yeah, I
Awesome,
appreciate it.
man. Well, I'm going to plug your LinkedIn in the show notes, because if you want to hire a super hungry developer like Michael, you should do that. But yeah, any other place where folks can find you and your work? Or is LinkedIn the best?
We could stick on LinkedIn because Instagram,
Cool.
I have cocktails. I have all my other past stuff. I've been sticking to LinkedIn. I have a GitHub, which is going to be through my LinkedIn again. So yeah, if you reach
I
out,
wish I
please
had
do. I will respond happily.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll do that. I wish I had an alternate podcast on cocktails, because that's like that's a budding passion of mine that we could have gotten into. But,
And that's the next project, to be honest. That might be something I do. I kind of want to build something in that. So
I love that. Yeah, I'm always thinking of. I was working out of a WeWork, and like a local cocktail bar owner came in, and he gave like this talk on cocktails and kind of like deconstructed the anatomy of them. He was like, yeah, whiskey sour, margarita, same thing. And he like just blew my mind on like how to construct cocktails. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's got to be some kind of like recipe generator.
So actually, I'll sum it up with this. I'll keep it quick. So I want to build another application that takes, a dictionary or database of cocktails and completely randomizes it and it could be a game, it could be a lesson. And so bar owners, it doesn't matter too much, but somebody could learn how to make cocktails through a game. And just it's keeping it simple, but I want to make a game building cocktails for new bartenders specifically, because I always struggled with that years ago when I started. And teaching as a lead bartender, teaching people how to make cocktails is not always fun.
That's awesome. Do that. I think that'd be amazing. Teaching people to make cocktails. All right, Michael. Well, thanks so much for your time, man. Have a good rest of your, what's today, Wednesday that we're recording this?
Yeah,
Wednesday.
Hump day, so that's good. Almost there.
All right, man. Thanks so much. I'll see you.
Thank you.
All right, that does it for today's episode of the Develop Yourself podcast. If you want to get in contact with Michael because you're hiring or because you want to ask him questions, we've pasted a link to his LinkedIn in the show notes, so definitely check those out. As always, if you're looking to become a software engineer, check out our program Parsity. It's our online code school at parsity.io. We have our next cohort that starts on July 18th, and already this one is starting to fill up pretty quick, at least quicker than the other ones that we've had. So check it out. Also on July 25th, our next iteration of Dev 30 launches. I think both these things were mentioned. I think Michael mentioned that he did Dev 30, basically the 30-day cohort-based JavaScript course. It is going to be $49 up until the end of May. So definitely jump on it. Then it goes up to $149 after that. This is going to be the first time they're actually charging for it. But the last two times we've had over 250 people sign up. So it's a great way to learn how to code. And if you end up going through Parsity, we will put that money toward your tuition, so it ends up being free. And then lastly, the last plug here is check out Peter, our co-host's YouTube channel, Peter Elbaum. His link to his channel will be in the show notes. He does awesome work. Anyway, have a great day. We'll see you here next week.